a ghost story with a twist. I just got back from watching Presence. I initially was not going to see this on the big screen, and then I decided, you know what? What am I going to do this Saturday night? I'm going to go watch a movie. What movie have I not seen? Oh, this one. So I went to go see Presence. Okay, you guys, this is a movie that I'm glad I didn't see the trailer for, because I think if I had, I would have been a bit agitated. From what I understand, the trailer touted this as being a really scary, super scary film or something like that. It's not scary, not in the traditional horror sense. There are some things that happen in it that are scary because they're realistic. They have been things that have happened before, and it's pretty scary, bad stuff. But don't think of super creepy paranormal activity or anything when you watch this, because that's not what it is. Not that I necessarily minded it while I was watching. For the most part, I did enjoy it. I have a couple few issues with it that I'll sort of touch on a bit. I'll try not to get too specific in case you want to watch it. I don't want to discourage you from watching it, because I do think it's worth checking out. Maybe not necessarily on the big screen. This is something that's perfectly suited for a small screen or at home viewing experience, basically. But the premise of the story is, well, when I say this is a ghost story with a twist, if you haven't seen the trailers and you haven't heard anything about this movie, it's basically a story that is told from the perspective of a ghost. So almost like the ghost version of In a Violent Nature, except I like this more than In a Violent Nature. It's only from the perspective of the camera, so you almost feel like you're a voyeur. You're watching this family, you're just kind of snooping and viewing things. And the presence goes from room to room. It starts off just the house is empty, then a family comes into the house, and the presence will move around and kind of spy on the different family members and hide in this closet. And there is one of the family members in there, the daughter, her name is Chloe. She can feel that there's a presence there, and she has lost she has lost a good friend recently, and someone else that she knew. So she suffered some trauma and sadness in her life because of that. And she's going through some stuff, and you see conversations between the husband and wife about how they're going to deal with her. And through the family dynamic, you see the sort of relationship that the husband and wife have. The wife is kind of domineering, sort of takes control. She just very, very, what's the word I'm trying to think of? I almost said business-minded, but that's kind of like how she treats things. She's a bit detached from the issues that her daughter is going through, and it's very obvious that she favors her son. There's two children, I forgot to mention, a son and a daughter. And the siblings, sometimes they have issues getting along with each other. So you're just watching a sort of semi-dysfunctional family as things kind of get a little bit worse between them, mostly because of what Chloe's dealing with, and also because they have also started to notice some stuff happening in the house. And so a good portion of the film is just that, going with them through this process, especially with the daughter, and you seeing the dynamics with the characters. The father and daughter are close. You can see that the father kind of feels protective of her, and he doesn't appreciate that his son is sometimes kind of a little turd to her. He says something to his son later. It was a quote that I really appreciated. I wrote down 3 quotes. There were 3 things that were said that stood out to me specifically. So it's just like this little family drama you're watching. And the ghost will sometimes do things that will have physical manifestations in the house. And so think kind of like a poltergeist. And ultimately, what you don't realize until a little bit into the movie, I think for me it was probably, I checked my watch when there's a particular thing that happens, something that is revealed, like a little twist. And when that moment happened, that's when my inner self was like, oh, hold up, this got a lot more interesting. But it took almost an hour for that to happen. That's one of the cons I have. This film is not long. It's less than an hour and a half. It's like an hour and 20, 25 minutes. However, even that feels a little bit too long because of this thing I just mentioned, that it took that long for the hook to work for me. Not that I didn't appreciate and enjoy what I was watching, but I was just kind of like, okay, we're just watching this family dynamic and stuff with the husband and wife, and the daughter has issues, and the son, and he brings his friend around, and there's this presence. But what's going on, and what's the resolution or the climax of this movie going to be? I didn't start to feel that, that spark of intense interest until close to an hour into the movie. That's really too long for a movie this short. I honestly think this might have worked better as a short film. I did like the story. I thought it was interesting. I thought it was clever, the way it was written. I like the twisty elements that were put in here as far as this being told from the perspective of the ghost, and the fact that there is a bit of mystery going on in figuring out what exactly is happening, what is driving this presence, and all of that. So I'm going to dance around the specifics of that because I do think it's worth checking out. Just be aware of these things. If you don't want to spend an hour and a half with it, or close to an hour and a half with it, you can always read the plot on Wikipedia because it's there already. Yeah, those were some issues that I had. Another issue that I had was there are things that the presence does or doesn't do that don't make sense to me, specifically things that the presence doesn't do in a particular moment that the presence had done previously. I'm going to keep that vague, but maybe you will know what I'm referring to when you get to that point in the movie if you watch it. But that was one of the biggest issues, besides the pacing, being just a little bit too sluggish in that first hour. That was like one of the big things that stood out to me as a problem, because I can't figure out in my brain the rationale for the presence not behaving in a certain way that it had in a previous scene. I feel like this is something I would like to look into, figure out what the heck. Maybe that would remove that particular con, but I don't know. I feel like in some ways I'm still processing this. This was a film that was directed by Steven Soderbergh, who's got a movie coming out shortly called Black Bag. That was one of the movies on my most anticipated for this year. And it was written by David Koepp. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I looked him up because I did appreciate some of the writing in here, just the theme of the story and the twist and all of that. I do think it could have been tighter, getting back to my complaint earlier, but I found out this guy, he is apparently the 9th most successful screenwriter of all times in terms of U.S. box office receipts. His writing credits include Jurassic Park, Mission Impossible, Spider-Man, and he's also directed some films such as Stir of Echoes, which I really like. That's a good movie. And Secret Window. I found that interesting. I mean, you can tell there was some thought that went into the writing here. It's just unfortunate that it didn't really grab my full attention until a bit later into the story. It's like one of those slow burns, I guess you could say, but it's a real slow burn. I did specifically like the father-daughter relationship depicted in here. I think the actor was Chris Sullivan. I think that was him. I like the way he acted his part. He was pretty convincing to me in the role. Lucy Liu was fine as the mother. The girl who played the daughter, she was okay. The guy who played the brother, he was okay. The acting was pretty much okay. There was one scene that happens where someone comes into the house, and that particular person's acting was not the strongest. It was a little bit, I don't know, cringe in some parts, but I mean, that's a minor issue. But getting back to the quotes that I mentioned that I liked, 2 of them happened when the father was talking with his daughter, and he's talking with her about things of the beyond, and God and religion and just things that we don't know about, things that we don't understand. And he said, I don't have the answers. I don't even know if I have the right questions. And I thought that was a really interesting way to sum up. Yeah, that's kind of the way we are in general. We don't have all the answers. Some people think they do, but they don't. And we don't even know if we're asking the right questions sometimes. I thought that was, I don't know. I liked it. It was simple. but it was succinct and I appreciated it. And then there was another thing he said to her that I don't know, kind of got a chuckle out of it because it was such a parent thing to say, but it was so wise. He said, make smart choices. The stupid ones tend to last forever. And, it's like, wow, if more younger kids could listen to the wisdom of some older people, maybe they would save themselves a lot of heartache. But, on the flip side of that, it's going through those rough patches that kind of can help make you into a stronger person. So, it's a balancing act. And then there was another quote he said to his son that I didn't really appreciate the significance of until later and I had a chance to think about things. He said, I know there's an excellent man inside of you, Tyler. I'd like to see him soon. It's just, I thought that was funny. It came after a pretty intense moment that had happened with the family. But the way he delivered it too, the way the actor played this part, I just thought he was very effective. I just liked the way he played this person. I feel like I've gone on quite a bit longer than I meant to about this. You can tell I'm just kind of still processing things. I really would like to talk about this with someone, and I would really like to ask the writer some questions, specifically the issue that I mentioned earlier about the presence not doing a certain thing that they had done earlier. I'm still mulling that one over. Anyway, that's about all I have to say about the movie Presence. If you check it out, give me your thoughts. Maybe we can talk about my burning question in the comments. Maybe I'll pin it, but I'll hide it. And someone who has seen this and has figured it out, answer me. Tell me what I'm missing. Okay, that's all I have for this one, you guys. Later.